Hi, I'm Myers Barnes and I'm a new home sales strategist. Let's talk about innovation because we all know competition is tougher than ever, and today you must innovate if you want to be a leader and continue to innovate and break through to stay relevant in business. And with innovation, I always find it amusing when people talk about being on the cutting edge of something. Think about it, the cutting edge, and especially in technology, people talk about being on the cutting edge. And being on the cutting edge, well, that used to be good enough to rise above. There's a phrase that makes me cringe. Good enough isn't good enough, and being on the cutting edge isn't either. You think about it. The cutting edge is on the verge. It's perched and ready to slice. We believe that phrase to mean that someone, an individual or company, is making exciting changes. But I don't see it that way, and nor should you. Take a look at this knife, if you will, for just a second, and you're going to see that it's made up of three component parts. It's the tip, and that's what's known as the bleeding edge. The tip pierces and breaks through. The second part, that's the cutting edge. That's the part of the knife that does most of the work. And the final part of the knife is known as the trailing edge. So this bleeding edge, the cutting edge and the trailing edge. So innovation is not about the cutting edge. Innovation is about the bleeding edge. The bleeding edge is that boundary that's not yet been broken. No one has yet to break through deeply enough to expose what lies behind it. So my question for you is this: are you on the cutting edge or are you just on the bleeding edge? Are you daring enough to explore new territory, even if it's difficult, scary, or poses a threat to your livelihood? You know, Steve Jobs is an example of someone that lived on the bleeding edge. He looked beyond the possibility of creating new technology and even defended himself to the scorn and skepticism of his critics as he focused on his goal. Yet he succeeded where others failed because he clung to his belief that he could always find the solution. Now you think about it. Where are you really in your profession? Are you innovating? Are you on that bleeding edge? Or are you merely working on this back cutting edge, doing what everyone else is doing, and selling yourself on the concept that the cutting edge is actually leading in business? So get off the cutting edge and leap to the bleeding edge and make the cut yourself. Because if you're not willing to bleed with innovation, then you're never going to lead in your profession. Thanks, I'm Myers Barnes. We have a lot more to talk about in future sessions.